I'm Brendan Gulick. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. All right, let's talk here about Oregon. There's a part of me that felt going into this past week, Brett, that the Buckeyes needed Oregon to win out. There's a part of me that felt like if you're the Buckeyes and you're trying to make the playoff, you need to have a loss that looks as good as it can. It's early in the season when your team is really young and you happen to lose to a team that, if they win out and they make the playoff, that's as good as it can get, right? If you're Georgia or Alabama, and let's try to project this forward, obviously, nothing's guaranteed. But, man, if Alabama doesn't play Georgia in the SEC title game, something wild happens.
Right.
And I don't care who loses that game. As long as it's a reasonably competitive game, they both belong in the college football playoff. The quality of your loss should matter. However, winning and only knowing that you can beat the teams that are actually on your schedule, because that's all you can control, that has to matter first and foremost. And if there's any sliver of a doubt between Oregon and Ohio State and the resumes are similar, Oregon's going to get in. They beat the Buckeyes. That's it. I mean, the whole point is to have head-to-head matchups. You want to earn your way into the playoff. So if it's close and there's one spot, the Buckeyes are out of luck. But if Oregon would have won out, and I'm hanging on to the hope that, Oklahoma looks vulnerable, I think the Buckeyes would get in the playoff ahead of an unbeaten Cincinnati team if Ohio State at the end of the year can beat Penn State and Michigan and potentially Iowa. I think that would be enough to get the Buckeyes in. But now that Oregon has lost, what do you think? Does that help or hurt Ohio State's playoff chances?
I think it hurts. And we've talked about this in the past that, like, if head-to-head matchups don't carry massive, overwhelming weight, in some ways, what are we even doing here?
Sure.
And I think, we can talk a little bit about, essentially what was like an extremely confusing performance from them in that Stanford game. And like, not only were they beaten by, in my mind, like not a very good team, but they actually looked like bad at times in that game. It was very weird. But I think in terms of, how it affects essentially Ohio State, like I think the rule of thumb is never be ranked above the team you lost to, right? And Ohio State is right now. They're 7, Oregon's 8. And so, that's not good. Like the flat out, that's just not good. I think if you're looking at Oregon's schedule the rest of the way out, you're looking a little bit at that trip to UCLA and wondering if Chip Kelly can put it together there. But essentially, if you're an Ohio State fan, you're absolutely rooting for Oregon to lose another game. And
at this point, yeah, you have to.
Because, like, if it's like you want the loss to look as good as you possibly can. Well, not anymore. Now you want Oregon to look bad and lose another game at least. Because you have to essentially take that tiebreaker, if you will, off the board. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of the nature of the beast a little bit with, the idea of, because of the 14 playoff, you're essentially operating without a safety net. And, and you have to pretty much run the table to remove any doubt. And so, I think, if Ohio State beats everyone they're supposed to beat, they go to the Big Ten title game and beat whoever that might be, probably getting in. And I think that's like the Virginia Tech rule, right? From whenever they lost to the Hokies at home. Well, boom, there's a comment right there.
Well, and so this comment I think is interesting because I don't know if I quite see it that way about Virginia Tech's record. For me, the reason why Ohio State got in to the college football playoff in the end of the 2014 season was because they got clearly better as the season went along. And in the biggest game against a very good Wisconsin team, They absolutely pounded Wisconsin. I mean, they looked like they played a different sport than Wisconsin played when they shut them out. They essentially took the decision out of the committee's hands and basically said, we can't afford to not put a team in that just shut out a legitimately good nationally ranked opponent in their conference championship game when they've clearly been getting better all season long. I don't think it was necessarily because of Virginia Tech's record being bad. It was because Ohio State got that good as the year went along.
For sure. And I think, at the time, that OSU Wisconsin game, I think, was the highest rated TV ratings wise game in OSU history outside of, national championship games. But and obviously I think it came on the heels of smashing Michigan, the week before. So it was two high profile, tons of eyeballs games where Ohio State just stomped on a team that everybody was kind of thinking had an opportunity or a chance to win, and Ohio State showed that they had absolutely zero. And so I think we look at that as kind of like essentially the blueprint. And I think everyone in college football does this. They look at that Ohio State team as the blueprint for getting in after losing early in the season, in that you progress, you get better. And then when the games towards the end of the season that everybody's watching, you blow people out. And because of, like it or not, recency bias plays a massive factor in both the rankings, the playoff rankings, and then absolutely the selection. And so that's a huge factor, and I think it's important. But I think if we're kind of circling all of this back to Oregon, that the loss to Stanford is not good, but in many ways, none of that matters. The loss doesn't, whatever Oregon does the rest of the year does not matter if Ohio State does not continue to play well and get better. And I think that's absolutely, absolutely huge for Ohio State. And that, I think, is all they can really consider.